Have you ever walked into the frozen food aisle thinking you were about to make a smart choice, only to get home and realize you paid too much for something that barely tasted good, barely filled you up, and definitely wasn't worth the money? That's the problem with frozen food. Not all of it is bad. In fact, some frozen foods are practical, affordable, and genuinely useful. But a lot of frozen products are built to look convenient while quietly draining your grocery budget. And smart shoppers know the difference. They don't just buy what looks easy. They stop, compare, and ask a simple question. Is this actually worth the price? Because when food costs keep rising, even a few bad choices in the frozen aisle can add up fast. Today, we're counting down 12 frozen foods smart shoppers never buy because these are the items that often cost more than they should, disappoint more than they satisfy, and make you wonder why you didn't just leave them in the freezer case. Let's start with one of the biggest offenders. Number 1. Frozen breakfast bowls. These always look like a great idea. Eggs, potatoes, cheese, sausage, maybe some bacon, everything packed into one quick microwave meal. On busy mornings, that kind of convenience feels tempting, but smart shoppers usually pass right by them. Why? Because these bowls are often made with some of the cheapest ingredients in the store, yet somehow they're sold at a premium price. Eggs are not expensive. Potatoes are not expensive. A little shredded cheese and a few tiny pieces of processed meat are not expensive either. But put them in a plastic bowl, freeze them, and suddenly you're paying a lot more than the ingredients are really worth. And the portion size is usually disappointing. Many people eat one and still feel hungry not long after. So, now you're spending extra for convenience, and still needing more food to get through the morning. Then there's the texture. Frozen eggs often turn rubbery. The potatoes can come out mushy, and the whole bowl tends to taste like something that was designed more for shelf life than for flavor. Smart shoppers know they can make their own breakfast for much less. Even something simple like scrambled eggs and toast, or homemade breakfast burritos prepared ahead of time, usually tastes better, costs less, and feels more satisfying. Number 2. Frozen mashed potatoes. This is another product that seems helpful at first. No peeling, no boiling, no mashing, just heat it up and serve. But here's the thing. Potatoes are one of the cheapest foods you can buy. So when a company takes a low-cost ingredient, processes it, freezes it, packages it, and sells it back to you at a much higher price, that's not a smart grocery move. That's paying extra to avoid one of the simplest side dishes you could make at home. And the quality often doesn't justify the convenience. Frozen mashed potatoes can be gluey, watery, or strangely smooth in a way that doesn't feel homemade at all. They may look creamy on the box, but once they hit your plate, they often feel more like a shortcut than real comfort food. Smart shoppers see through that. They know a bag of real potatoes can make several servings for a fraction of the price. And even if they want an easier option, there are still better values than buying mashed potatoes from the freezer. Number 3. Frozen pancakes and waffles. These are a freezer classic. A lot of people grew up with them. Pop them in the toaster, add syrup, and breakfast is ready in minutes. Convenient? Yes. Smart buy? Not always. The problem is that frozen pancakes and waffles are usually expensive for what they actually are. You're paying a lot for flour, oil, sugar, and packaging. And if you have a family, one box disappears fast. What looks like a simple breakfast solution can become a repeat purchase that quietly eats into your weekly grocery budget. Then there's the quality issue. Some brands are decent, but a lot of them come out dry, bland, or with that unmistakable freezer taste. They're quick, but they rarely taste as good as fresh pancakes or waffles made at home. Smart shoppers look at the cost per serving and realize it often makes more sense to make a batch at home and freeze their own. That way, they get better taste, bigger portions, and lower cost. Number 4. Frozen rice dishes. This category has exploded in recent years. Fried rice, seasoned rice, rice bowls, steamable pouches everywhere you look. Frozen rice is being sold as a modern shortcut. And yes, it is convenient. But it's also one of the worst values in the freezer aisle. Rice is one of the cheapest pantry staples you can buy. So when you're paying a premium for a small frozen portion mixed with sauce, oil, and a few tiny vegetables, you're usually paying far more than the product is worth. A lot of frozen rice meals are also heavy on fillers and light on substance. They may look flavorful, but once heated, you often realize you paid a lot for a small portion that doesn't really satisfy. Smart shoppers know rice made at home costs pennies per serving. Cook a bigger batch once, refrigerate or freeze leftovers, and you've basically created your own convenience food for a fraction of the cost. And that's what separates smart shopping from impulse shopping. Frozen food should save you time and make financial sense. If it only saves you 2 minutes but costs 3 times more, that's not convenience, it's a markup. Number 5. Frozen single-serve pasta meals. These look like the perfect lazy lunch. A little tray of lasagna, baked ziti, fettuccine alfredo, or mac and cheese that promises comfort in just a few minutes. But smart shoppers know these meals are usually one of the worst deals in the whole freezer section. Why? Because pasta is cheap. Sauce is cheap. Even cheese-based pasta dishes can be made at home for far less than the price of one tiny frozen tray. Yet, these single-serve meals are often priced like they're doing you a huge favor. And then you heat one up and realize the portion is smaller than it looked on the box. That's one of the biggest tricks in frozen food. The picture makes it look rich, filling, and satisfying. But in real life, it often turns out to be a few bites of pasta with watery sauce and uneven texture. The edges get overcooked, the center stays cold, and somehow the whole thing still manages to taste flat. Smart shoppers see that for what it is: a convenience product with a premium price and a low return. If you're going to pay that much, you should at least feel full afterward. Too often, you don't. Number 6. Frozen smoothie packs. These are marketed beautifully. Bright fruit, clean packaging, trendy ingredients, words like wellness, energy, and superfood printed across the front. They look like the smartest item in the freezer, but often they're one of the most overpriced. At the end of the day, most frozen smoothie packs are just pre-portioned fruit with maybe a few greens or seeds added in. And while that sounds helpful, smart shoppers know they can usually buy the same ingredients in larger bags for much less money. You're paying extra for someone else to portion it into neat little packets. And the portions are often smaller than expected. So you open one pack, blend it, and still need to add banana, yogurt, juice, protein powder, or more fruit just to make a full smoothie. That means you paid premium price for a product that still didn't do the whole job. Smart shoppers skip the fancy packaging tax. They buy plain frozen berries, mango, pineapple, or mixed fruit and build their own smoothies at home. Same idea. Better value. More control. Number 7. Frozen stuffed chicken entrees. This is one of those products that almost always looks better on the box than it does on the plate. Stuffed chicken breasts sound impressive. Broccoli and cheese, ham and Swiss, garlic butter, creamy filling, crispy coating. It sounds like restaurant food without the restaurant price. But smart shoppers know better. These entrees are often expensive for the amount of actual chicken you get. And a lot of that weight comes from breading, filling, sauce, and processing not quality meat. So what looks like a hearty main dish may actually be a heavily engineered product designed to feel more premium than it really is. Then there's the cooking issue. The outside may brown too fast while the inside stays uneven. The filling can leak out. The chicken itself may end up dry, bland, or rubbery. And suddenly that easy dinner upgrade becomes one more frozen food disappointment. Smart shoppers would rather buy plain chicken and season it themselves. Even a very simple homemade version usually tastes fresher, costs less per serving, and doesn't come with the same processed feel. Number 8. Frozen seafood dinners with heavy breading or sauce. Now, to be fair, not all frozen seafood is a bad buy. Plain shrimp? Good option. Basic fish fillets? Often useful. Salmon portions? Sometimes absolutely worth keeping in the freezer. But once seafood gets buried under thick breading, creamy sauce, or a restaurant-style frozen dinner label, smart shoppers start walking away. Why? Because seafood is already expensive. So if you're paying seafood prices, you should be getting seafood not mostly coating, filler, and sodium. A lot of these frozen dinners give you the illusion of value while quietly reducing the amount of actual fish inside. And sauce often hides a second problem: texture. Once heated, many of these meals turn soggy, watery, or greasy. The breading loses crispness. The fish can feel soft or mushy, and what should have been a solid dinner ends up tasting like compromise. Smart shoppers know that when seafood is involved, quality matters. If they're spending the money, they want the real product, not a heavily disguised version of it. That's why they usually stick to plain frozen seafood they can season and cook themselves. Because smart shopping isn't just about grabbing what looks easy, It's about recognizing when a company is charging extra for convenience, packaging, and marketing while giving you less actual value in return. And the frozen aisle is full of products that count on you not noticing. Number 9. Frozen mini appetizers. This is where a lot of shoppers lose money without even realizing it. Mozzarella sticks, jalapeno poppers, pizza rolls, mini quiches, stuffed bites, snack-sized pastry puffs. These foods are designed to feel fun, easy, and irresistible. And that's exactly why smart shoppers are careful with them. Because most frozen appetizers are a terrible value. They're usually expensive for the amount of food you actually get, and they disappear incredibly fast. You open a box thinking it'll last a while, and suddenly half of it is gone before dinner even starts. What looked like a quick snack or party option turns into a repeat purchase that adds very little real substance to your grocery haul. That's one of the biggest problems with this category. You pay a lot, but you don't get much satisfaction in return. A lot of these foods are mostly breading, cheese, oil, and air. They're engineered to be craveable, not filling. So people keep reaching for more, which makes the cost per serving even worse. And once you start doing the math, it becomes obvious that many frozen appetizers are priced far above what they're really worth. Smart shoppers understand that fun food still has to make financial sense. They don't mind an occasional treat, but they know these bite-sized frozen snacks are some of the easiest products in the store to overpay for. Number 10. Frozen vegetables with sauce or seasoning packs. Now this one is important, because plain frozen vegetables can actually be one of the smartest grocery buys you can make. They're convenient, they last longer than fresh produce, they reduce waste. A bag of plain broccoli, peas, green beans, or mixed vegetables can absolutely be a smart shopper favorite. But once the vegetables come covered in buttery sauce, cheese sauce, garlic glaze, herb seasoning, or some kind of fancy chef-inspired coating, the value usually drops. Why? Because now you're paying extra for less actual vegetable and more add-ons. The product feels more exciting, but you're often getting a smaller amount of food at a higher price. And a lot of that extra cost is going towards sauce, not nutrition, not volume, and not necessarily better flavor. In many cases, the sauce also overwhelms the vegetables. What could have been a simple, healthy side turns into something salty, heavy, or overly processed. And if the goal was just to make vegetables taste better, smart shoppers know they can do that themselves at home for a fraction of the cost. A little olive oil, garlic, butter, lemon juice, or seasoning from your own kitchen can turn plain frozen vegetables into a great side dish without paying the premium for a freezer-made version. That's how smart shoppers think. They buy the ingredient, not the marketing trick. Number 11. Frozen individual desserts. These products are experts at looking luxurious. Mini lava cakes, personal cheesecakes, frozen dessert cups, tiny cream-filled pastries, little chocolate domes in elegant packaging that make you feel like you're buying something special. And maybe you are, but smart shoppers know you're usually not getting much for the price. This is one of the most common frozen food traps. Small portions dressed up as premium treats. The packaging is beautiful, the serving looks elegant, and the product feels indulgent, but when you actually look at how much dessert you're getting, it's often surprisingly little. And because the portions are so small, people often eat two. That means the price doubles fast. And suddenly that little treat costs as much as a full bakery dessert or more. That's not smart shopping. That's paying for presentation. There's nothing wrong with wanting dessert. Smart shoppers aren't against spending money on something enjoyable, but they do pay attention to value. And a lot of frozen individual desserts are designed to feel upscale while delivering very little actual food. That's why experienced shoppers often skip them. They know a larger dessert, store-brand alternative, or simple homemade option usually stretches further and makes a lot more sense financially. By this point, you can probably see the pattern. The worst frozen food buys are rarely the ones that look cheap. They're the ones that look convenient, polished, or premium, while quietly giving you less food, lower quality, and a higher price than the product deserves. And smart shoppers notice that. They don't just ask whether something is easy to prepare. They ask whether it's worth bringing home at all. Number 12. Frozen. This category has grown fast, and for good reason. The packaging is clean, the names sound smart, and everything about these bowls is designed to make you feel like you're making a responsible choice. Protein bowls, grain bowls, power bowls, plant-based bowls, keto bowls, wellness bowls. They look modern, balanced, and efficient. But smart shoppers know many of them are one of the most misleading buys in the freezer aisle. The first problem is portion size. A lot of these bowls look filling on the box, but once you peel back the film and heat them up, the meal suddenly looks much smaller than expected. You may get a modest amount of rice or grains, a few vegetables, a little sauce, and just enough protein to technically mention it on the label. But enough to truly satisfy you? Not always. And that's where the value starts to fall apart. Because these bowls are usually priced higher than they should be. You're paying for branding, health-focused language, trendy ingredients, and convenience. But in many cases, the actual amount of food inside just doesn't justify the cost. That's why so many people eat one of these frozen healthy bowls and then find themselves hungry again an hour later. It looked like a complete meal. It was priced like a complete meal, but it didn't perform like one. Smart shoppers see that clearly. They know they can make the same kind of meal at home with rice, vegetables, beans, chicken, eggs, or pasta for much less money and with much better portion control. And if they want convenience, they can prep several simple bowls ahead of time instead of paying premium prices for tiny freezer meals that don't really deliver. And that brings us to the real lesson of the frozen aisle. Smart shoppers do not avoid frozen food completely. That's not the point. There are plenty of frozen foods that are practical, affordable, and absolutely worth buying. Plain vegetables, plain fruit, simple fish fillets, frozen berries, basic shrimp. Frozen food itself is not the problem. The problem is when convenience becomes an excuse for overpaying. That's what smart shoppers understand better than anyone else. They know how to look past the packaging. They know how to ignore the marketing. And most importantly, they know how to ask the right questions before putting something in the cart. How much food am I really getting? How much of this price is just branding and convenience? Is this product saving me money or quietly wasting it? Could I make something similar at home for a lot less? Because in today's grocery store, that kind of thinking matters more than ever. Prices are up, packages are smaller, and companies are constantly trying to dress up cheap ingredients as premium solutions. And the frozen aisle is one of the easiest places to get fooled. A product can look healthy, feel practical, and sound like a smart shortcut, while still being one of the worst values in the store. That's why smart shoppers stay alert. They don't just buy what looks fast. They buy what makes sense. So the next time you walk through the frozen section, take an extra second before grabbing the first thing that promises convenience. Some products really are worth the freezer space. But these 12? Smart shoppers usually leave them right where they are. And honestly, that's one of the easiest ways to protect your grocery budget without sacrificing much at all. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comments. What frozen food do you think is the biggest waste of money? And if you've ever bought one of these thinking it was a good deal, you are definitely not alone. Sometimes the smartest shoppers aren't the people who buy the most. They're the people who know exactly what not to buy.